Welcome to a deep dive tailored specifically for you here on the Religious Studies Podcast. We're excited to bring you content generated with the power of AI and verified by our experts to ensure accuracy and insight.
That's right. And today we're tackling some, well, genuinely fascinating sources. They give us a real window into the mind of Claude Lévi-Strauss, one of the most influential thinkers, really, of the 20th century.
Yeah, big name.
A very big name. We're looking particularly at excerpts from his book Myth and Meaning, which actually started as a series of public talks, more conversational.
Okay, and these sources dive right into his core ideas about what people used to call primitive thinking and how that connects to myth and, even our own minds.
Exactly. Our mission here is to kind of unpack these ideas because they challenge some long-held assumptions, and they are absolutely crucial if you're trying to understand religious and mythological systems around the world.
Right. Crucial for the religious studies perspective?
It's almost like a shortcut, really, to grasping some pretty complex concepts that kind of redefine how we even approach studying non-Western thought and, the stories that underpin so many belief systems.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Levi-Strauss, huge figure, structuralism, anthropology, but these talks, you said, are maybe a bit more accessible.
Yeah, a bit more direct, less academic jargon, perhaps.
So where does he start in sort of challenging our assumptions about the minds of people and cultures without writing?
Well, his first move, and it's, simple but really powerful, is to just step away from that word primitive altogether.
Just drop it.
Drop it. He insists we should describe these cultures as without writing. And that's not just like political correctness or semantics. He argues that the old interpretations, the ones based on the primitive label, were just fundamentally flawed. Wrong, basically.
Yes, okay. And he mentioned, didn't he call out a couple of specific anthropologists' views he was pushing back against?
Yes, exactly. He highlights two key figures. First, Bronislaw Malinowski. Malinowski was really focused on the practical side, the function of culture.
The functionalist guy, right.
Right. He tended to see the thinking of people without writing as driven almost entirely by, immediate survival needs, basic stuff.
So for Malinowski, myth might just be, a way to justify rules needed to survive.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. Heavily weighted towards utility in that view. The other person he contrasts himself with is Lucien Lévi-Strauss.
Lévi-Strauss, okay.
Lévi-Strauss took a totally different angle. He argued their thinking was fundamentally different from ours, dominated by emotion, mysticism, what he called participation mystique.
The idea that they couldn't really think logically or abstractly like us. More feeling, less thinking.
Sort of, yeah, an emotional or affective view. So you had these two poles.
Well,
purely practical or purely mystical and emotional.
And Levi-Strauss comes in and says, hold on, it's not either. It's more complex.
Precisely. He's pushing back hard against both. His core idea, the one he built his career on with books like Totemism and The Savage Mind, is that the thought processes of people without writing are not only intellectual, but can also be disinterested.
Disinterested? What does he mean by that? Not just thinking about lunch or shelter.
Exactly. Disinterested in the sense that they're driven by a genuine, deep human need to understand the world, nature, society, the cosmos, for the sake of understanding itself, not just for immediate practical gain.
Like a philosopher or a scientist might be, driven by curiosity.
Yes, that's the analogy he draws. And intellectual because they use complex methods, sometimes analogous to philosophy or even science, to build these really elaborate systems of knowledge and meaning. This is huge for religious studies, you see.
So
it means the myths and beliefs aren't just quaint stories or emotional reactions. They represent rigorous, intellectual attempts to grapple with reality, to structure the world.
That's a big shift in perspective. Okay, so it's intellectual, it's disinterested. But he's not saying it's the same as modern scientific thinking.
No, definitely not. He's very clear on that. He acknowledges it's different and, crucially, in terms of practical results, often inferior to scientific thought, which, raises the next big question.
Which is?
If it's intellectual but different, what is the key difference, according to him?
What stands out to you from these sources on that specific point? What's the main distinction?
The main difference he really zeroes in on is the aim. The ambition, you could say. Mythical thinking, he says, has a totalitarian ambition.
Totalitarian. That's a strong word. What does he mean by that?
He means it wants to grasp everything. It seeks a complete, general, total understanding of the universe, and it wants it now. All at once. The feeling is, if you don't get the whole picture immediately, you feel like you understand nothing. It's an all-or-nothing quest for cosmic order.
Which is Yeah, completely the opposite of how science works.
Exactly. Scientific thinking, think Descartes, it proceeds step by step. It breaks big problems down into smaller, manageable bits, focuses intensely on limited things, analyzes them, and builds understanding piece by piece incrementally. It's patient, specific.
Right. And the outcome. Science, through that focused, patient approach, achieves this incredible mastery over nature. It gives us real, tangible power technology, medicine, the ability to manipulate the physical world.
And myth.
Myth offers this powerful, often compelling illusion of understanding the whole universe at once. It provides meaning, order, a place for everything, but it doesn't generally give you that same kind of practical, material power over nature. It's a different kind of achievement.
Ordering the world conceptually versus controlling it physically.
That's a great way to put it. And that distinction is so important when you're looking at religious worldviews, right? They provide those comprehensive explanations, that sense of place, which science often doesn't even aim for in the same way.
Okay, this also gets into how we use our minds. He suggests that maybe we in modern society aren't even using our full mental toolkit, that some capacities are less developed. Yeah, this is another really interesting angle he takes. He argues that the specific mental skills and even sensory perceptions we develop are really shaped by our culture and what it demands from us.
So, because we have writing and technology.
Exactly. We might rely less on certain kinds of, say, super fine-tuned sensory awareness compared to people in cultures without writing. They needed this incredibly precise, almost encyclopedic knowledge of their environment.
Like which plants are edible, which are poison, animal behavior.
Everything. The subtle signs of weather changes. He even mentions their ability sometimes to see the planet Venus in broad daylight, which apparently our own ancestors could do too. It requires a kind of visual focus and training that, well, we've mostly lost because we don't need it in the same way.
So it's not that our brains are fundamentally different, the potential is there, but our environment just trains different skills. They needed to track animals, we need to, navigate complex data streams or drive in traffic.
Precisely. The underlying hardware, the human mind, he argues, is the same potential. But you can't max out all human mental capacities at once. Different cultures prioritize different bits of that potential based on their way of life, what's necessary, what's valued.
So we gain literacy skills, abstract thought, tech skills.
Right. Well, maybe things like direct environmental observation or, say, highly developed oral memory might atrophy a bit. It's a trade-off.
But underneath all these cultural variations and what gets developed, he holds on to a core belief about the human mind itself.
Oh, absolutely. It's fundamental to his whole project. And these sources really hammer it home. Despite all the surface differences, cultures, societies, skills, the human mind is everywhere fundamentally one and the same, equipped with the same basic operating system, the same potential capacity.
And that's pretty much the consensus now in anthropology, right?
Widely accepted, yes. In anthropology, cognitive science. It's a foundational idea.
Okay, so if the mind is fundamentally the same, what about cultural difference itself? He talks about that too. Is difference a problem? Something to overcome?
No, far from it. He argues difference is incredibly, the word he uses is fecund.
Fecund, meaning fertile, productive.
Exactly. Fertile, productive, progress, creativity, new ideas, they all emerge through difference. Through the rubbing together of distinct ways of thinking and living. What he worries about isn't difference, it's the opposite. It's something modern. Over-communication.
Over-communication. That sounds weird. Don't we want more communication?
Well, he means the trend towards homogenization. Global media, global markets, mass consumption, where everyone starts watching the same things, wearing the same things, maybe even thinking the same things.
Like a monoculture?
Exactly. Becoming consumers of a single globalized culture. And that, he fears, risks drying up that vital source of originality and creativity that comes from difference.
But he doesn't think we're actually heading for total bland uniformity.
No, he's more optimistic, or maybe just realistic. He sees a kind of dialectic at play.
A dialectic, like a push and pull.
Yeah, a tension between opposing forces driving change. He thinks even as society seems to homogenize on one level, new lines of difference, new distinctions will inevitably pop up internally. There's almost this inherent human need for diversity, for making distinctions, because that's how we create meaning.
Okay, this feels like a good place to bring in the myth analysis. because he uses a specific myth, the one about the skate and the south wind, to show this kind of thinking in action, right? This logic he finds in myth.
Yes, exactly. This is where it gets really concrete and honestly quite brilliant. He tells this myth from indigenous peoples in Western Canada. It's set in that sort of mythical time before humans and animals were totally separate.
And the problem is the wind.
The problem is the south wind is blowing constantly, nonstop, making life impossible. Then this character, the skate, shows up and somehow manages to master the south wind, forces it to agree to blow only sometimes, intermittently.
Okay, so a flat fish beats the wind.
Yeah.
On the surface, it sounds, well, like a myth, like something that just never happened. Why take it so seriously?
Right. And that's the key to his structuralist method. He's not asking if it's historically true. He's looking for the logic underneath, the invariant elements, the patterns. He asks the crucial questions. Why this creature, the skate? Why this problem, the south wind?
There must be a reason within the myth's own system.
Exactly. From a purely literal scientific view, it's absurd, a fish-fighting wind. But he's digging for the logical reason, the symbolic fitness of why these specific elements are brought together to solve this specific problem in the story.
In the skate itself,
Yeah.
it has specific physical traits that are key.
Absolutely crucial. He points out its physical form. It's slippery underneath, rough on top. That's already a kind of duality, right? But the killer feature is its shape. Flat, yeah. Viewed from above or below, it's large. But if you look at it from the side, its profile. It's incredibly thin, almost disappears. So imagine someone trying to shoot it with an arrow. From above, big target. But the skate can instantly just turn, present that thin edge.
They become impossible to hit.
Impossible to hit. It presents two totally different states.
Okay, wait. That sounds like the binary thing you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
The switching between two states.
You got it. That's exactly where he makes the connection. And it's kind of mind-blowing. He links this directly to concepts from modern cybernetics.
Cybernetics? Like computers and control systems.
Yes. The study of communication and control, often involving binary signals on-off, yes, no, 0, 1. The skate, with its ability to instantly switch between these two discontinuous states, big target, impossible target. Hittable, not hittable, it acts, conceptually, like a binary operator. It can give a yes or no answer to the question, can you hit me?
Wow. Okay. And the problem in the myth, the wind problem, that's also binary.
Precisely. Think about it. The south wind problem is defined by a binary opposition. It blows all the time, state 1, constant, bad, impossible life. Or it blows only intermittently, state 2, intermittent, good, possible life, a compromise.
Bad state versus good state. Always on versus sometimes on.
Exactly. So the problem is binary. And the skate, because of its inherent physical binary nature, large, thin, hittable, unhittable, is the perfect logical tool within the symbolic system of the myth to represent the solution to that binary problem. It's the operator that can flip the switch from always on to intermittent.
So what you're saying is mythical thought here is using a concrete thing, the skate's body, as a way to do abstract conceptual thinking. Using a kind of binary logic like early computers.
Yes, that's the core insight, and it's pretty profound. Lévi-Strauss is arguing that our modern understanding of binary logic, which came through cybernetics and computing, didn't invent this way of thinking. It just gave us the tools to finally recognize and understand the same kind of logical processes that were already humming away in ancient mythical thought.
Just using different materials, concrete natural elements instead of abstract symbols or silicon chips.
Exactly. So instead of seeing mythology and science as totally separate, divorced things, he reveals this deep connection, this continuity in the underlying logical operations of the human mind.
But he's still careful not to put them on exactly the same level, right? He sees science as having achieved something different.
Correct. He doesn't claim they're absolutely equal. Science's, let's say, superiority lies in its demonstrable practical results, controlling nature, technological power. And also, interestingly, its growing ability to actually explain what was valid and logical within mythological thinking itself.
So science can understand myth better now.
He suggests so. Science is moving, he thinks, beyond just quantitative measurement towards integrating qualitative aspects of reality. And that wider lens helps us appreciate the logic in myths we used to dismiss. It also challenges that old philosophical split, mind versus matter, thought versus the physical world. Mythical logic, working through these concrete, living forms like the skate, hints at a much closer link. So thinking about this from a religious studies angle, this raises a really crucial question for anyone studying myth or religion. If mythical thought isn't just, primitive mistakes or purely about survival or just raw emotion, but it's actually a sophisticated intellectual system using its own kind of logic, often based on these fundamental cognitive processes like binary opposition. How does that change how we should analyze religious stories, symbols, rituals?
Well, it means we need to look deeper, right?
Mhm.
Beyond just the surface narrative or the actions in a ritual, we need to hunt for the underlying logical structure.
Hmm.
What are the conceptual problems being tackled? What oppositions is the myth trying to reconcile? How is it trying to order experience?
Yeah, it encourages us to really appreciate the intellectual heavy lifting, the structural complexity that's present in all these diverse systems of thought, whether they developed writing or, built particle accelerators, doesn't negate the intellectual effort involved.
It makes you see that maybe the human mind's tendency to split things into twos. Good, bad, wisdom, nature, culture, life, death isn't just a flaw or a simplification. Maybe it's a fundamental, powerful way we operate, visible in ancient myths and, weirdly, in the foundations of modern computing.
It's a powerful connection.
So, wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway here? Levi-Strauss, even in these more accessible talks, gives us some really powerful tools to analyze myth and belief not just as stories, but as systems with an intellectual core, with logical structures, deeply connected to how the human mind fundamentally processes the world, often by breaking complexity down into these understandable pairs.
Yeah, and if you zoom out even further, his work, especially presented like this, hints at something potentially even bigger. A bridge, maybe. That the logic structuring our thoughts might not be entirely separate from the logic embedded in basic life processes themselves.
Oh,
It hints, perhaps, at a deeper connection between human thinking and the rest of the living world than we usually assume. Maybe even pointing towards a different kind of wisdom.
okay, that is definitely a provocative thought. Something for you to mull over as you continue your own explorations into the fascinating world of religious thought and mythology. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive on the Religious Studies podcast.
We really hope this exploration has been valuable for you. And if you found it insightful, please take a moment to follow the Religious Studies podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, and then leaving us a 5-star rating really helps. It ensures that these deep dives can reach even more people who are interested in this stuff in the fascinating world of religious studies. Thanks again for listening.